it again.
Oh, does Tim have to turn it on?
Oh, the first page was blank.
Oh, so now
Try
then,
turning it off and turning it on again.
Well, I'm trying switching to digital sign.
Plug in.
Yes, they're both recording.
It works for people too. That's why they just have to unplug for 3 minutes.
Oh.
The inside smells all good. It's just.
So it should be mirroring on the other screen, so it doesn't work.
Switch it back one more time. Make sure that that now back.
Yes, exactly. It's like the connection. Just one connection.
Great job, guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, thank you for your time.
Schmitty, you could probably do this on your own. Come on up.
Otherwise, how about you could share it with one of us and you can use our device.
I got mine up already.
yours just says on good.
Is it Google Slide?
I guess, you just have to go to the
Maybe the HDMI is just not working here. Do you have a VGA?
Port? No.
Sure.
Yeah, just do it.
Alright,
Okay.
I'll go through this and I'll figure it out. Well, this year we did start, Adam and I started a Panther powerlifting team. And
We're trying to figure it out.
You got
okay. There was something we actually kind of talked about on our way to state football, or at state football, so we kind of got back and we met with Jason quick about what started it, and what we're looking at. So a general overview of it was, it's both boys and girls, it's competition, it's a sport that was allowed these kids to,
What you can.
okay, so it allows, the participants, they can also do their winter sport as well. So we had several basketball players do as well, where it's not a grueling sport where it's every single night, because a lot of kids are coming in and lifting anyway. So we kind of said, why don't you guys look at joining? And we had them 3 meets throughout the year, and then 4th if they qualify for state. And it is a club, but we still held the kids to the academic standards of the athletic code. We did have a situation this year where a student wanted to participate, but their grades weren't up to par, so just like doing any other sport, they could not. So we hold those standards as well. And it's another sport too, you can continue after school. It's collegiately and individually. I know we have, last year, Jess Kinney. She participated in high school, and she still does today. She's actually, she's home for spring break, and she was in the weight room today training after school. And it does carry over to our other sports, because it's not just a regular powerlifting program. We still do the speed and agility and everything mixed into it that students will be doing in the weight room anyway. This is our team this year. We did have 18 participants, 5 girls and 13 boys. One thing that about powerlifting, it is an individual sport, but it's also a sport because we had one student where he cannot participate in risk of contact sports because of getting hit procedure-wise. So this was a sport that allowed him to participate where he didn't have to worry about the contact. And so it's just there's another opportunity for a student that maybe want to do sports, but because of that mental situation with them, or not mental, health situation with him, that he, could not participate in other sports, so he was able to do this, and he made great gains to it, and he loved it. As far as how far can the kids go, we do have, it's not a WIA sanctioned sport, but it is the WHSPA, is the Wisconsin High School Powerlifting Association. So they're kind of like the governing board, and we do check in with, for all the students to participate in meets, there's a, what's that form called?
So academic good standing.
Yep. So we had to fill up the sheet, and we, had to check all the grades to make sure we're in, and then actually Jason had to sign off as the athletic director, saying that those students are in good standing so that, they could compete in those meets. And then we did, also have, 9 athletes qualify for state in Appleton this year. And there also is the national, meet that you can qualify for at state. I don't think anyone's going this year because it is in Louisiana. So, although it's during spring break, so it'll be a good spring break to go to Louisiana. And then, another thing there is too, and we talked with, one of our lifters about possibly doing this, they can try out for the junior world team. And that is where they train during the summer. And actually the junior world team does train in Wisconsin. So it's, down in the Appleton area. So it's an opportunity where they can try out and maybe make that team if they're interested in doing so. This year, some of the accomplishments, we did have lifters who gained 50 to 100 pounds. A lot of them are the girls, because they came in, they won, I'm very strong. But you don't know how strong you are yet until you push yourself. And I think that helped build confidence in them as well. We had 5 lifters that we placed in the top 5 at meets this year. We had 9 qualify for state. 2 of those participants placed 4th at the state meet this year, after the first year just doing it. And we had a lot of positive feedback from the parents and lifters. As you can see, that's what they're here for. They're not an angry mob. They're here supporting. But because we just kind of said, if they're interested in showing up, so they're showing their support for it, because it was something I think a lot of them going into it didn't know right away what it consisted of. And then after seeing it and how the athletes enjoyed it, and because a lot of them it was new to them, because I remember the first meet in Osceola, they got there and they looked, and the bleachers are full of people, and you're standing there lifting all in front of everybody. So a lot of them like, but after they got into it, they loved it. So it was a great thing for them. And like I said, building that confidence and the great work ethic, because Mr. Sheldon has set them up with a program that, believe me, when they're working hard, when they're done, they're sweating, and then they complain about it, but yet they still do it. So that's a good thing. Usually they want to quit, but they still do it and they push themselves. These are our state qualifiers this year. Out of it, we did have our 4th place finishers. Keeganberg was 4th place at 198 pounds, and Noah Schmidt was 4th place at 114, which is who was here tonight. Stand up and take a bow. But again, it's one of those sports, where I think Noah right away was a little leery because he was a little guy. But we tried telling him, you're lifting against people, it's kind of like wrestling, you're wrestling against people your weight class. You're not lifting against guys who are 3 times the size. Okay.
And the 3 kids that were ahead of Noah were all either junior or sophomore. He placed 4th out of 12 kids in the whole state.
As a freshman.
So he's still got so much more potential to go. Same with Taylor. She's made huge gains this year, and every kid in our program has made huge gains.
And we did have our 4 seniors, they were like, I wish we would have started this a long time ago. And our vision going forward, like I said, we had a great first year. I think I just see this growing down the road. And it was really nice because we did have the winter coaches were open to doing it, because it didn't take away from their sports. Because we had some wrestlers, and we said, you have a Saturday wrestling match, you go to it. You're wrestling your first priority. And we love to get enough lifters down the road to compete for, meet wins and state championship. Not last year, year before, Osceola was this Division II state champs. But I believe that in the way some of our lifters came in, you need 10 lifters in each, boys and girls, to compete for the championship. And we were scoring points, but again, we just didn't have the numbers, so we couldn't finish up higher with for the winning the meets. We talked about holding a couple fundraisers. I talked with parents about this, just to help with the cost of the lifters. I know, and this year, Mr. Cooley did help with, he paid for the meets for the entry fees, cause there's an entry fee for each meet. And he did also purchase us t-shirts, for that. We'd also like to host a meet here at SCC. I talked with the coach at, Elk Mound, and they have all the equipment, so we don't have to purchase anything, because, trust me, that equipment is not cheap. But he offered, and I was like, I could go down and pick it up, they have all the lights and everything, so. In our region is pretty strong with working together like that, because they're, really trying to push. And the teams in our region, River Falls, Osceola, New Richmond, Elk Mound, and then there's scattered lifters throughout, some from St. Croix Falls, Osceola has a huge team, and a couple from Somerset. But, we'd like to have a meet here, because I think it'd be a good fundraiser, but also having kids see it, get it, and understand what it is, would be a good thing too. And one thing that we're gonna fundraise for is matching singlets. Brad Holzer was nice enough to give us some leftover wrestling singlets. And I know the kids love wearing those to the so he gave us some, some ones that they weren't using, but in the future, we'd like to get one, so we are all matching. Proper powerlifting belts and chalk, and also Mr. Langman did use his finite budget to help purchase some of these things too. So it's kind of like a community effort here this year for this. So we did get some of the proper weight powerlifting belts, purchase some various equipment for the weight room. We've talked about some different things that we would like to have, for training. Help the lifters pay for the rooms at state, because right now this year was on the family. But if we could get a Fund 60 going with that would be something that we could get back to them, for those that make it. And purchasing a powerlifting is kind of like a long dream, but purchasing a powerlifting record board that we can display outside the weight room that shows the records, and we can change them. And I just have examples here. I just made this isn't one word. So those are some of the records that we set this year, and we love to get every weight class filled, so we have records at each one. The boys one's next.
It's busy.
You can see some of the records, but some of those students, where they competed and how they did. Like Noah Schmidt, it's amazing. I mean, he weighs 100. He's in the 114 pound category, but we'll say 110 pounds on a good day. And he's, lifting a total of 584 pounds total, which is pretty impressive. And some people would like to thank, of course, the athletes for taking this challenge on. It was a new sport, new to a lot of them. And they stepped in and they took it on. And there were some obstacles, they weren't unsure about themselves, but like I said, it built that confidence. I'd like to thank their families for their support. It was new to them too. And a lot of them, when they came to the meets, I remember some people came to the meets and I would talk to them like, what to expect. And then afterwards, they're like, this is cool, so it was new to everyone. Big thank you to Mr. Cooley and Mr. Soderberg for supporting our crazy dream here and letting us go with it, giving us the go ahead. Also to Mr. Holzer, like I mentioned, he loaned us the singlets this year. And then a big thank you to you guys for sitting and listening to me ramble on here for a little bit about this. And listen to us on the good direction we have our program going right now. Any questions?
So thank you guys. Anything that we can do to offer a student something for them to latch on to that is different than, just the one thing. That's what it takes a lot of times. So thank you for pursuing this.
I was just scanning the list. Are there any students that this is their only athletic activity? It looked like, I don't know every single name on the list, but it looked like most participated in
Well, I
some
know
other activities as well.
Jack
McGrady.
because
Because of his,
I
okay,
don't wanna bring up names, but
which is cool.
Yes.
I mean,
He is
right,
the
so now he
student.
has, it's the one thing.
Mhm.
and it allowed him to, he stayed, he stayed with it, and he's excited about next year. And one thing Abby did, if you wanna see someone that is on this, I don't know how many text messages I got from him about, hey, we need to do this, in the middle of the night, and I'm like, man, chill a little bit. It's good though, I mean, it's good to have someone like that, but, I know he sent out a Google form for the kids to, set goals for next year. And I think everyone that was on the team filled it out.
Yeah.
And wants to be a part of it next year.
Do you have a sense for new participants?
Oh, I think we'll have, at 18, we'll probably do 5 kids from graduation? 5? 4, 8. I say, 14 coming back. I have a feeling we'll probably gain maybe 10, maybe 15. I'm optimistic for more. I already have a lot of kids asking about next year.
Great.
And we plan on starting it probably in November, right away. Start getting them prepared, because River Falls starts in December, right away. And we're behind on the 8 ball right there. We didn't get to it last time, we didn't get there, so next year we wanna start earlier, just to get them interested.
I'm assuming that safety and proper lifting techniques are
That's the hugest thing, is,
primary
oh yes,
in your thing. You know, that's always a concern to me, because I've got some old friends that have been lifters for years and years and years, and most of them either have bad backs now or artificial hips.
and that's.
So, and that's a concern for me, that, if they're lifting these crushing weights, that they're gonna suffer chronic injuries later in life.
And
But
that's
I realize that, this is a good sport, and, I've had nieces in River Falls that have participated in power weightlifting team down there for years, and they've done quite well, so.
And form and technique is our #1 priority, above weight, above all else. I've had kids who, they've had back issues in the past. Even at one of the meets, one of the boys said his back was bothering him during deadlifts. I told him, you wanna scratch? I wanna scratch it. I'm not gonna put a kid, we're not gonna put a kid in any harm's way. If they're hurting, they're done. Safety's first.
Yeah, it's just like we would in football. Kid gets a concussion, you're out until we.
Clear protocols, yeah.
Any sport, their health is #1.
And even when we practice, I'll film the kids doing like their squat, deadlift and whatnot, and I'll just go over the video, showing what they need to work on, technique. They really like that, because video doesn't lie. I can sit there and explain it to them, and they'll get it. They're showing the video, they understand it right away, and that's gonna do.
Sounds great. Well, I'm excited for the opportunity for the kids, give them another chance to participate in a competitive sport, and look forward to bigger and better things, so. Thank you, Ryan, thank you, Adam.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation.
I wanna make sure nobody breaks it. 600, that's for sure.
I know my dad's
Just get his name on it. Sometimes he could have done more, but just in his head, he's like, how much can I do that nobody else can do? You don't wanna stay for the rest of the fun stuff?
Sorry, I got that meeting to go to.
At that one place.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is our financial reports from our treasurer.
Bank account balances as of February 28th, 2019. Citizens state checking $185,623.30. Citizens money market $512,504.88. Citizens money market fund 46, $51.61. Citizens money market suicide prevention fund $18,056.15. American Deposit Referendum proceeds, $55,825.24, for total bank account balances of $772,061.58.
Okay. Treasury report, what do you wish to do with this?
Move to accept as presented with the other reports as well.
Second.
A motion Jeff, or motion John, second Jeff, to accept the financial reports as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the consent agenda, which consists of board learning and special meeting minutes of January 7th. School board meeting minutes from February 18th, wage and benefit committee meeting minutes of March 4th. Approval of the bi-monthly bills for March. Approval of resignations and retirements. Jeremy Gibson, C-Team Boys Basketball Coach. Margaret Bailing as the full-time fourth grade teacher. Margaret Bailing as a full-time elementary play mentor. We have no contract modifications at this time or appointments. Approve the athletic co-op application agreement for the girls hockey team. Approval of the student participation in the early college credit program for fall of 2019. And approval of the curricular modification request for students to enroll in the full-time and part-time virtual education courses for 2018-19, which consists of 3 part-time applications and 1 full-time, for a total of 4. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion Kirk, second David, to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the report is our student enrollment update. Tim?
All right, at the top of your sheet, I want to point your attention to the number of students in seats this month is 1,613, down 3 from last month. Free and reduced lunch rate remains pretty constant at an 18% range. Then our SCC students taking advantage of our virtual school, we have 23 full-time, 66 part-time. And then open enrolled in through our virtual school is 138 compared to 91 at this time last year. And then overall, open enrollment in versus open enrollment out, we have 241 students open enrolling in, 109 open enrolling out, for a net of 132 in. I want to thank Pam and the ladies in each building office for the work on this and their attention to detail. Great work. Thanks to those ladies.
So are all those virtual school students fully funded yet? Some are still in the 3-year role? Or do we get full funding right away?
In district or out of district?
In district?
In the ones in a district?
Yeah.
Well, it depends when they started. They have to, be here.
Do we, I think, just as we're coming up to some of the budget discussions, wasn't it last year we were saying, we're seeing the growth in the virtual school, but we're still on a 3-year rolling average with some of those students or not?
That's
No,
open
for
enrollment.
open enrollment in, we receive the full amount each year for their tuition.
Okay,
So, but it's a different amount than our resident students.
about 2/3.
Yeah, it's like $7,300. I have the exact figures,
Okay.
we can talk about it later.
All right,
But
thank
yeah, we get the full amount though for the actual number of days that they attend. So even if they come later in the year and attend for 60 days, we get that amount broken down by,
All right,
the 60 days.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any other questions with regards to student enrollment update? You know, I keep looking at the numbers and wonder how we are for building capacity yet. Total we're starting to bump up against the top.
Yes, we are.
I guess that's the trouble of having a growing district.
Good problem. We'll take that.
Okay. With that, then we will move on to the next item, which is our student, staff, and community recognition. John, if you would please.
Recognitions in, three categories this month. The first one is all around the, middle school play Annie. If you had a chance to see it, was an amazing middle school performance, and there are thank yous out to Shell Schmidt, Catherine Oakland, and Carrie DeMond for their dedication and commitment to putting on another phenomenal middle school play. The second one is around the recent bus accident. And the following folks were just absolutely invaluable in the situation. Great Stanislaw, Anaheim Zweifel, Haley Schoonover, and Deb Roberts. These the first three, these young ladies really stepped up during the bus accident. They kept their cool while keeping the younger students calm and contained while Pete was off the bus working with the other driver. They also worked together to get all the names of the students on the bus during the accident and had it neat and ready before the police officer arrived on scene. When asked, these students helped without hesitation. So those first three were students. And then Deb Roberts, thanks for doing a great job and following protocols when her bus was involved in the accident. Her ability to stay calm and delegate during the sudden crisis to make sure kids on the bus were taken care of allowed all the other parties to stay calm and safe. We appreciate the care and assistance that she provided the other drivers. Just an outstanding job by her as a bus driver. And then the last recognition this month is to Alyssa Jacobs. If you remember Alyssa, she's a recent grad from St. Croix Central and went on to Ohio State University where she performed on the dance team. And we're expressing congratulations to Alyssa as Ohio State won the NCAA dance title. And so she's part of that team, a performing member of that team. So those are the recognitions for this month.
Thank you, John. Okay, it's always good to know, recognize those people. Kurt?
Oh, I was ready to signal the boys.
Okay.
I think bus races are next.
Okay. Discuss the participation of the district in the bus race competition at Cedar Lake.
Well, okay, so my name is Dominic Parker. Well, the bus is like more of a motivation for me to come to school per se, because I really don't like school that much, but I don't know, I've gone to the bus races since I've been a little kid, and racing is my life, that's all it is. It's every Saturday night at the racetrack. My hobby is demoing. I go and crash cars on purpose.
Who gets to straighten them?
It's just my hobby and it's my motivation for school, and I know it is for many other kids. I think last year we had about 25 students help on the bus. It was there was more kids from school that were at the races that I actually saw that were there than I've ever seen go to the racetrack ever. We had Reimer drive last year, and I think Mr. Bungle gave us okay, he wants to drive this year if he can do it. So, and I think last year we got $500 from Cedar Lake. We did, and I think that $500 will be for the roll cage and safety equipment for the driver to keep him safe. And I know that's like the biggest concern is safety reasons for the bus. And I understand that completely because when I get myself in a car, I don't go in without a cage around me to make sure I'm not gonna get hurt. But I know Jake got some pictures. I don't know if everyone saw it at all last year, but we had.
I don't have my Chromebook or anything to present with.
So he just has a, oh wait, he might. But it's just more of one of those things for me. Emery was mentioning to us, he can't be here because his daughter has a choir concert, so he kind of had a believe, but I kinda take role in it, take leadership and kinda tell people what to do. The bus was per se my baby last year, nothing happened to that bus that I didn't know about what happened to it, but, it's,
There's rumor there's nitrous.
yeah. It's-
That doesn't help.
It's safer than the propane, cause propane is a flammable gas that it blows up, it's gonna light fire. So for the safety reasons, I wanted to do nitrous, cause it's a compressed air, not like able to blow up in your face. So
Safety first.
I was more looking at the safety reasons than anything, but as in Hudson does it, Osceola does it, Baldwin, and then Unity up by Balsam Place. So it's more of like a community type deal thing, like we had a lot of people, cause we had posters up saying we were in it. And it's just fun for us kids that we don't really play much sports, so everyone else is for football and stuff like that, get to go to state for their stuff, and this is for us kids that are like hands-on learners and shop classes. This is our state, we put all of our stuff together, build something that goes on, has our school's name on it in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. We had small engines in that, welding, art, Winslow's electricity classes, we had so many more classes than some people thought were in it that took part in it. But I think Jake's got some stuff he wants to say.
So with last year, St. Croix Central completed something that hasn't been done for 7 years with the bus races. Hudson Schools has been in it since the beginning of the races and has always finished. The first year I went, they were pushed up on the wall and they backed down to finish the races. Last year, Mr. Reimer rolled Hudson for the first time ever, and they did not complete the race.
So we have that problem going.
But like Dominic was saying, it's been a huge aspect for him. I personally don't partake in sports, nor does or a lot of the other kids who participate with the bus races, and this is basically their chance to shine. The kids who are in the metals classes, are in the electric, are with Wenzel and with all sorts of different classes, don't get to showcase their talents. That's their talents, it's kind of hidden from the community as a whole, that we have kids who know how to soup up a diesel engine, we have kids who know how to do things that most of those kids in that school don't know how to do, they don't know how to properly do anything really towards a diesel engine. But personally, last year, I didn't really have a whole lot to do mechanically wise. With a brush and a roller, I painted that entire school bus top to bottom. I was out there for about a week and a half painting that bus. In the rain. It was a big achievement for everyone involved. That was our biggest push factor, was we just wanted to be able to showcase talents more and showcase what our students are capable of doing as a whole, and it's just, this means a lot to a lot of the students.
And like, I wanna add to Jake's thing real quick, there is an award, if we can get most of our student body there, we can get a trophy for, what was it called, Spirit Award?
We have achieved that before.
We have, according to Emery when he drove. So what I was gonna say is, we do a pep rally for football and everything. What if we did something along the lines of that to tell the student body that it'd be cool to come out and support Buckle, that for some reason, when I said one thing to him about it, he got all happy and weird about it. The first thing he said to me was, is there a speed limit? And do I have to be nice and not hit people? As soon as I said no, he said, okay, I'm calling my wife right now.
Is it true you're gonna nickname him Unbuckle?
Yeah.
You guys have footage of previous races?
Yeah.
There is on YouTube.
You might go pull it up.
And not necessarily for us to see, but along
We
the
show
lines
the
of,
student
yeah,
body.
Shows student
they did
bodies.
good.
we have play-by-play footage of us rolling Hudson, of us rolling, we rolled, but we rolled.
3 out of the 4 buses
Yeah.
that were rolling. Mainly because I told Ryder that if the bus was gonna be slow, which it was, and I was kinda mad about that, if it's slow, just go out there and put on a show, and that's what he did.
You were coaching him up, good, I like
Well, I
that.
sat there the whole time because he was shaking and didn't really know what to do and was scared.
It was
And I kinda just looked
terrifying.
at him and said, and then when he came back, he looked at me and said, that by far, that is the funnest thing I've ever done. Like, he gets to drive buses with the CDL on the road, and when you get to get in one on a track, and have other buses flying by it, he goes, that is a different feeling that you don't feel.
Are you guys both seniors?
Juniors.
Juniors.
We didn't get to partake in it our freshman year, but we did partake in it last year, and that was just a really huge deal for us. We were really happy that that happened.
So what are we looking at here?
Okay, so
Last year.
if I can help them out.
Yeah, that'd be nice, thanks.
This, I got to watch a lot of these guys participate, and it becomes a classroom outside of the classroom. So they literally deconstruct a bus, and then the kids split into workforce teams to have a common goal. So they strip the whole bus, and then they make modifications. They paint it like exactly what they're saying, and they have to coordinate this in and amongst their classes. So they spend a lot of time outside.
In 1 month, all we have is 1 month to do all this, and then we come
From
back.
the time they acquire the bus to when they race is 1 month. They made a lot of local connections with businesses.
The 1 month is by rule?
Yeah.
That's all we got.
A lot of connections with local businesses on how to modify stuff, best practice with engine specs, things like that.
We had Premier Egg as a sponsor last year. We went around, I went around the community with my friends. I went to Somerset to the junkyard to get stuff for the bus. Emery drove the bus to a spot tractor thing to get it tuned and everything done to it. Because it needed, me being my picky person, and I don't like losing, I didn't wanna lose. So I found places.
So I went last year, there was probably 100 students from SCC that showed up. This place is packed. The entire course is packed. And this is the staging area for the buses. So they stage right where all the race cars that do the mud track sit. Our bus, you can see, has the flames in the front, so they did a nice job painting in SEC colors.
That was the main goal.
This is the start of the race, and I think there's 2 or 3 different components to the race. One is for speed, so you have 2 buses and they race laps. And then another one is the demolition, where they try to take out other buses. They have a certain amount of laps or time limit to do that. And you can see these are all schools that participate, so from around the area. That's Mr. Reimer. They do a pregame talk, so they interview the drivers before the race, so they get to say their little spiel, and then they race.
When they go down to do the driver's talks, Emery already said he'd do this, we're gonna put them in the Panther costume and send them down there with the driver to like get everyone excited, laugh.
So that's our bus right there. You can see they did a ton of work painting it blue, panther heads across the side. Like I said, this takes a lot of time, effort, and they do skip out of some classes to do it. But it is their passion. This is a whole different deal that draws kids in and draws the community out to go to and experience it and to support in a whole different way. It's crazy. If you have never been to it, last year's my first year going.
They're watching the videos over there and
It's
I'm
awesome.
laugh over
It's awesome.
This is gold, I think you should put it up on the screen.
there.
I'm telling you.
Do the highlight reel, that was.
So that's the pictures I got from last year.
Where are you guys gonna get the bus?
They bring it
It
to us.
is donated from the
Oh, they
speedway.
give,
Oh, really?
so they give you a slow bus?
Yeah,
It
slow,
was
slow.
a bus, and
They
they
give
put
us a
one.
Does anyone else know anyone has a bus? It's painted already?
It's been enough demos already.
So,
There is this little insurance hurdle we have to get over before we can do it, so we're working on that, so.
Biggest thing was, I guess, like you said, the insurance hurdle, which we didn't have a single kid get hurt working on it last year, which is a good thing. Because Emery would not let you do anything unless he was there watching you and making sure you're doing it the right way. For the driver, like I said, that $500 before a roll cage. Emery has a 5-point harness we put in the bus. I gave Reimer my helmet last year that I usually wear, and then that's about it. He just does his thing.
And the racetrack does check up on your safety keys and your harness is proper.
You're not allowed to race unless it's to their spec.
When is the race? What
It
day?
is gonna be Saturday and Mother's Day weekend, so that would be May 11th. It's my mother's birthday,
And
so
you
that's
would,
our birthday.
you would start working on it approximately April
After
11th?
break.
Yeah, they bring it back. They bring it to us April something.
Okay. So, the last few years, district office kind of found out about this after the fact, right? So, we recognize all the merits, but we also gotta be safe and, make sure we have the proper insurance. So we're working on that currently to make sure. We've spoken to, I think, 3 of these 4 to ask what they do, these other schools. And they're all over the board, from we risk it to we don't do it. Well, actually, yeah, a lot don't do it because of the liability. To our insurance company says it's okay. So we're trying to get an
But
answer.
as we saw, I mean, you can get hurt, but the way you get hurt is when you don't listen to what Cedar Lake tells you.
They give very specific instructions on what to do if you roll, if you crash into the wall. That's the purpose why enrichment is important.
So the bottom line is, we're trying to work past that.
Mhm.
So,
And-
we recognize it's a good thing for you guys.
Absolutely.
It's just one of those things that I wish would've got here a little bit sooner, cause supposed to have probably talked to Cedar Lake probably like 2 weeks ago, but like we did last year, it was kinda last minute, but I don't know. Last year, I pushed and pushed and pushed Emery to do it. And all I got told from him was the bus is showing up, and that was all I heard. And then I got told this year to come talk to you guys.
We'll keep working on it, get an answer as fast as we can, how about that?
Which is better.
Yeah, cause the history of this goes back a ways, because we were in there, 4 or 5 years? And then the insurance company found out about it, and that's where that 7-year lag came in, because they refused to cover it, and
And they stuck it by the goalkeeper last year, cause I wasn't, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like great, we used to do it, let's do it. So,
Yeah.
that was
so
my
that's
job.
where the prohibition has come in, and during that 7 years. I've asked Tim, when we met about it here about a week or 2 ago, to see, how the other schools handle it, because a lot of the other schools do it, they've been doing it for years. Osceola's been in there longer than I can remember any other
Does it
team.
have to be under the school's insurance for the driver? Does the driver have to be under school insurance? Or can that be his own?
If they're participating as a school.
Yeah, we talked about that, right? You just do it independently, but that's not the way it works. If we knowingly have our students working on a school bus during school time under the supervision of a teacher, with our name on it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it's ours.
Sorry to say we didn't know that was
So-
happening.
So we've, I asked Tim to check on that. I've asked Tim to check with the insurance company to see if there's a special rider that we could purchase just for that, period of time.
Or another party insurance company, that would be a one shot.
Just to get the coverage we need, because
Avoid the one.
I think it's a great program. I've never been too concerned about the safety aspects as, the insurance companies are, but insurance companies are always worried about something.
Well, we have someone come in and weld the road patients, a professional too, like someone that does it on
We
the
don't
day.
have students work on our roll.
We absolutely, know the merits, everything you said, we agree with 100%. We just need.
We're just jumping the hurdles right
our
now.
due diligence to make sure that, everyone's
You
protected.
just keep bugging Mr. Cooley every day until he has an answer.
And 3 times a day.
So,
Especially one time.
John?
I would invite you to consider, Dominic, you said that, this is your reason to come to school and you don't much like school. You just gave me a pretty good passionate, well-engaged, high student achievement plea about this bus case. And what I've heard you say tonight tells me that actually you do like learning, and you're a real smart kid, and you're passionate about stuff. You just do it you just have maybe a different learning style. Because I heard communication. If you ever took the time to write down all the classes that are involved in creating this bus, that litany of coursework that goes into a 1-month application is applied learning. So if you think about standards-based assessment, what's the top level? I can apply it to yet unknown complex world problems. So take all the learning that you've done, and now you've got 1 month to put it inside a school bus and go put it on a racetrack. That's called applied learning, all right? I think you could either go work for an insurance company or give a lawyer a run for his money with the arguments that you give us. And I'm gonna end by saying, and you're passionate about the trades. I heard welding, I heard wiring, I heard engine mechanics, I heard diesel work. You're smart about the difference between safety between propane and nitrous. And we need trades. We are always gonna need trades. So don't sell yourself short, man. You are passionate about learning. You have something to offer, not only yourself, but this district and this community. And I hope tomorrow morning when you walk into school that you think about, I do belong here. I have a place. I can learn here. I've got amazing opportunities inside yourself and through the tools and the teachers that are here to serve you as well. So you are in this school, you matter in this school, and you're making a difference, so keep going, all right?
I would say the life skills you had going out into the community and asking, I mean,
Absolutely.
I work for a technical college, that is all those employers want. They want people that can talk to people face to face, that can, you know, get a job done and shake hands, so nice work.
You're doing it.
So, we're gonna work on it, work on the hurdles for you, and I guess my feeling is plan on the race and we'll figure out a way to get her done.
Exciting.
Thanks, guys.
And we hope
Thank you, guys.
if it becomes, if insurance doesn't come to an issue, we'd love to see all you guys out on the track.
Maybe
I'm gonna stand.
You mean we gonna ride in the bus or?
We'll leave some seats in there for you guys.
Sign me up.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you, guys.
the student participation.
See you at 8 o'clock, Tom.
The student like activity bus go.
Nice haircut.
Thank you. Absolutely, great point. So, Jason and Kurt, please communicate with Jen, because she has some questions.
They actually
need
emailed
answered.
me at 6 o'clock tonight with the name that I needed
Perfect.
to be able to get the quote.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
You get your reward in heaven.
Okay. Any other comments on the bus race?
Well said, John.
Okay, moving on to the next item is consider short-term borrowing for the school district. Jen?
Is this to cover the insurance or?
No, cover payroll.
If it's a rider.
It might be, no. So if you remember last year around this time, we needed to borrow money as well to cover our March 20th payroll. We receive our next state aid payment on the 25th. So we only need the money for about a week, a little bit less, in order to cover this payroll and the AP checks that you approved tonight, so we can get those out in the mail. So the total cost is gonna be less than $500 for the interest for the week. And it's just your standard loan at 4% interest. They do a 3-month loan just like they did last year, but we only take it out for the 1 week. If we were to need it again within the 3-month period, we would not have to sign any more loan papers, but I would certainly let you guys know if that were the case.
So moved. Second.
Motion Jeff, second John, authorize the short-term borrowing. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the renewal of the shared services contract with CISA 11.
So, I guess I can start and then turn it over to Jen, who did the summary cost comparison. Each year, as you know, CISA sends this contract. I then take it, present it to the admin team, go through it item by item, make some adjustments as necessary. A few I want to point out. We went from 2 days to 3 days for district level consulting services. That was one change. We did not renew Simatech based on not using it, and we did not renew Moodle services. So we came out ahead actually there. And then on the second page, we renewed everything and kept our special education consultation days at 2 again this year.
Okay.
And Jen has developed a
I guess the
spreadsheet.
question that I would have is, with the Simatech, we signed up for it before, why were we not using that? They did not have the resources we were interested in, or?
So we get a user report every year, and there was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but minimal usage, and we thought we'd come out ahead if we did need something to pay the per time fee rather than the standard of the standard 1760 base plus $2 per student. So even if we used it the same amount of time as we did last year, we'd come out ahead doing it the per rather than the package fee.
Okay. Okay, that answers that question. Any other questions with regards to the shared services contract with CISA 11?
Move approval.
Second. Okay, I have a motion, Jeff, second, Scott, to approve the renewed services, shared services contract with CISA 11. Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is preliminary discussion of the 2019-20 budget. Okay, turn it over to those. Jen?
So I'm gonna have you flip to the second page. As we usually do, I kinda like to go through the assumptions first, and then I just printed off the very general summary. That was the first page. If we need more detail, I can always put it up on the screen too. So we'll start with the revenues. Again, this is for the 19-20 budget as preliminarily. We were looking at, over the past couple months, you guys have looked at a couple different things in regards to summer school. We had originally added 2 days in August to next year's calendar that we would consider summer school days. And then a little while later, we talked about reducing our June summer school days to a half day. So the wash between those two is about 1 FTE. So we'll gain 1 FTE instead of the 7 we had originally said for the August sessions. So originally we said 7, but then we reduced it by 6 for those June sessions. So the revenue piece for next year is all based on what happens this summer. The expenditure piece is a little bit different because those June hours will hit the 18-19 budget, and then the August hours will hit the 19-20 budget. So as long as it's carried forward to next year, we will see a savings for those June hours as well for June of 2020, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Tim and I did go through this today too, and kind of went through some of the projections and what we were looking at. So last year, with our third Friday count, we had an increase of 30 FTE. So we are projecting an increase of 20 FTE. So we felt like that was fairly conservative, but still very realistic. That will increase our 3-year rolling average from 1579 to 1602. And that's at the $9,500 each, because those are our resident students. going into the 2020-21 school year, I kinda wanted to give you, because Ever's proposal has several different things, some of them pertain to this year coming up, some of them pertain to the 2021. In 2021, they have considered adding 4K as a 1 FTE. Right now, we can either have a 0.5 or a 0.6. We do the 0.6 FTE for those 4K kiddos. Now we're going to be able to do a full 1 FTE starting in 2021.
That then is, extends 4K to a full day.
Yes,
And we'd have accompanying expense because we pay 4K teachers from 0.6 to a 1.0.
currently we have 3 4K teachers, so we would need 6 4K teachers. So yes, we have put that in as well for next year, for 2021. But yes, it would be full day 4K.
Kids be ready for it.
In Ever's proposal, he has a $200 per student increase to the revenue limit. Now, this is a little bit different than the past few years where they've been adding the money into the per pupil adjustment aid. So for 1920, the recommendation from Evers is to add $200 to the revenue limit. There will be no increase in the per pupil adjustment aid. So the difference between the two is with the revenue limit, some of that is gonna go back to the taxpayers of the district. With the per pupil adjustment aid, it's an aid directly from the state. So it will affect our mill rate a little bit. So in 2019-20, our revenue limit would increase to $9,711. And then in 2021, Ever's proposal has another $204 increase. So that would get us to $99.15.
Didn't his proposal also for that year have, a catch up, basically?
Right, so for 1920.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
We are just, his proposal brings that low revenue ceiling up to 9,700, and the $200 increase gets us just above that, so it would not apply. But yes, in the 2021, we would then increase to the $10,000 low revenue ceiling if that is approved. And that's how I have it presented in here. We talked about the per pupil adjustment aid already, that is remaining the same. The other projection that we made was to add 25 students for open enrollment. So this year for open enrollment, right about now, we have met our budgeted amount for this year. So we still have some room for growth, yet this year, we're adding another 25 students on top of what we currently have.
But you're adding them as a full year, and we're gaining them as portions of the year, right?
Right.
Okay.
So the ones that are coming on now, we're receiving right around $2,000 for the remainder of the year. I also increased the aid estimate for those students by $300. The last 2 years, what the state has done is they've taken the increase in the per pupil adjustment aid and they've added $100 to that, and that's what we've received for our open enrolled students. So that would be $300 for this year then, coming up. We assumed a 1% increase in all other revenues. And then a couple things that we've been talking about at the Wage and Benefit Committee meeting are gonna play in here. I did a 5-year average on our property tax values, and we've been averaging right around 7%. So I plugged a 7% in for our equalized values increase. In the past, we've usually done 2%, just as a very conservative measure. But what we've been talking about is trying to keep our mill rate more steady so that we're not having it drop way down, and then if we have needs in the future, then it would come way back up. So by levying an additional amount now, this is the next one, for debt and prepaying some debt, we can keep that mill rate a little more stable. So this also includes an additional $500,000 on the levy to prepay debt. Any questions on the revenue piece?
I guess what concerns me is the difference between what Evers is asking and the legislature's gonna give them.
Well, he's asking a lot more. These were, pretty much the consensus, most folks and things you read that are most likely to happen. You know, there's a lot more to that, but I mean, the 3% for special ed is conservative, but everyone you talk to and you read about says the increase in revenue limit 200 and 204 is most likely to happen. Yeah, then there's a bunch of other things too.
Catch up one might not happen.
Well, that is the.
In year two, the up to the $10,000 versus the $99.15.
But it's really still a net for us, you know, 200. I think it's actually less overall, because if you give every school a per pupil of 204, that would be everybody. Well, actually, I take that back, it's
We
the same
get the
thing.
204, if we get the 10,000, we'd get an additional
An
85 per
additional increase.
kid in the second year.
So, I think it's still conservative, he's asking for much more.
On the $500,000, you said to pay off debt, legally, can that also be fund balance money?
We can't levy it and then put it into the fund balance.
Because our fund balance is
Right.
gonna get precarious in a couple of years.
What
So
the anticipation is that by prepaying debt, we would have sort of mill rate capacity, that if we went and did a referendum, say we could add $500,000 to the budget without raising your taxes, cause we've been
Stabilizing
smart
it,
about
yeah.
how we're doing it. We have some, bonds that are gonna roll off,
Sure.
so. And what we're trying to do, I mean, what the Wage and Benefit Committee is talking about doing is, our teachers are underpaid, going to the community and saying, we need to fix that, and it means with the state rules, we're gonna have to levy it locally. And how can we do that with the least impact to taxpayers?
Sure.
So you see, 500,000 is both a revenue and an expenditure, it's a wash for the budget, you gotta count it. And it does, affects the mill rate.
when we take out debt, it's more like we've borrowed $5 million. We can repay that any way that we want. If we wanted to, we could levy the full $5 million in 1 year and prepay the entire thing. So that's why we're able to do this, but yes, we do have to, if we're going to levy it for debt, it must be spent on that debt. So,
And the authorization for that was the bond referendum. 5 years ago or whatever it was.
okay, we'll move on to expenditures then. Under your object 100 and 200 series, the CPI for July 1st is 2.44%. So that is a little bit higher than we have seen in the past. Last year it was 2.13. The year before, I wanna say it was under 2 and we went with a 2% increase. So the 2.44% for all staff would be about 265,000. We also have been talking about for the last couple months increasing the substitute pay rates. So we have included that in our costing here. Teacher rates would go to 120 per day, they're currently $100. And support staff would be increased from $10.50 up to $12 an hour. And that's gonna cost about $20,000 next year. Does not include those long-term subs because they're paid a different rate once they hit that 10-day mark. They're on the salary schedule. We talked a little bit earlier about those summer school changes, and that would be the effect on the budget. Again, as long as we carry that through to half days in June of 2020, we would see a savings of approximately 18,000 for those salaries as a net. I was trying to conserve paper, so you're gonna have to flip it over. We had several positions that we added throughout the school year this year. One was a sixth grade paraprofessional. We also added a 1 FTE virtual school counselor and a 1 FTE special ed secretary. The paraprofessional started in November, so that position was mostly funded. It was probably about 3/4 funded, but the other two positions were only about half funded. So we need to get the dollars in the budget for those positions that we've already added. So that's what you see right at the top. We also had then for the 2020-21 school year, the increase to 6 FTE teaching for the 4K. So that's an additional 225,000. And again, that's for 2021, not 19-20. So we have another year before we hit that. This year we had 1 retirement, and if we hire a new person at approximately 45,000, we'll save about 21,000. We also had, last fall when we set the levy for the retiree payments, we included an extra $25,000 in there to prepay some of next year's retirement. So next year we will need 263,000 minus the 25 that we're going to repay, so that helped us a little bit. We'll still need an extra 114,000 for those retiree payments for that local retirement benefit. So that was a big one that added to this year's budget. As well as the next one for the health insurance premiums. In January 2020, that is our final and third and final year of our contract with Health Partners. We already negotiated an 11% increase. That's about $165,000.
Okay, that's a firm 11%, or is it up to 11%?
Max, right?
Well, it's a max, as we found out this year, cause it was 9% for this year and we ended up with a 6% increase. So it can change. The only reason we got a reduced increase this year was because the fees for the Affordable Care Act were reduced from what they had been. So I'm anticipating that it will be the full 11%.
Okay.
But that's the most it will be.
If we go to full-time 4K, we'd need space also, right? And that's not included in here?
Yes. We have not included anything in for that. Also with the health insurance, we have had 5 additional policies added since the beginning of the school year. So when we had our open enrollment period in November for January 1st, we added 4 family health insurance policies and 1 single health insurance policy. Now that doesn't sound like a ton of money, but it's not in the budget for next year, and those family health insurance policies are right around 25,000 when you include that HSA. So total, we're gonna need about $110,000 more than what we need for the 11% to make that work. We also have our dental insurance rate guaranteed only through December of this year. So I'm estimating a 5% increase starting in January 2020. That's a relatively small amount. We're also estimating a 3% increase for our long-term disability insurance and no increase in vision, life, Wisconsin retirement. We're estimating that those will remain the same. The only other change that I have on here as far as salaries and benefits is in, 2021, so again, this is another year out. We have told the staff that we will increase that 403B benefit from 1.5% to 2%. So I've added an additional 65,000 for that.
And is any of that offset by the difference in
Paying off retirements,
local
retirement?
Some of it is, and you'll see that above where it says retirement, where we budgeted 124, 145, and we need
and then
263.
-36?
Yes, and that's because of the $25,000 prepayment, so we don't need quite as much next year because we're prepaying it this year, so it's, otherwise that 114 would be another $25,000 higher. So it would offset that more closely.
But the plan was as local retirement,
Goes
we
down.
allocate $400,000 a year to that, and as we paid that off, we would contribute that to the 403B.
Right, and then we had all these prepayments and all those other things, so that's what skewed that a little bit.
Alright,
So that was the plan that we had presented to
But
the
in
staff.
reality, we're off by about 29,000 if you take the 36,000 off the 65.
Yeah, because of growth, we have more staff than what we anticipated at that time. Any additional questions on those salary and benefit costs? Okay. Then we have our objects 300 to 900. You'll see the first thing on there is that prepayment of the debt for mill rate stability of 500,000. We always include, insurance increase, utility increase, and postage and telephone increase of 2%. So those are all included in the model. We've also an increase of $25,000 for maintenance. If you recall, a few years back, we had to cut $100,000 out of that budget. We had started with 150. It was reduced down to 50,000. We're trying to get a little bit of that back into that budget. And then we also have an increase in classroom supply budgets for areas where it's needed. So that can be many different things. I mean, I'm thinking of the powerlifting kids that were here earlier, and Jason and I had talked about possibly starting something for them. That's where this $10,000 would go, or a portion of it.
DI or, whatever, there's always something.
Yeah.
Right. So, Tim and Jen, can you explain this 4K? Have we explored the program value of moving from 0.6 to 1.0? Because if I'm reading this right, we go revenue plus 130, but our expenses go up 225,000, and we need 3 more classrooms.
But remember that our increased enrollment now is gonna be on that 3-year rolling average. So we're gonna get 1/3 in the first year, 2/3 in the second year, and then the full amount in the third year.
We're in the very preliminary stages. Lindsay, Jen, and I met, once, but the Baird budget model wants you forecasting out whatever, through 2024, potentially. So, she just thought it'd be a good idea. I mean, this is far from a decision. I mean, this is a projection. It's a year and a half away.
Well,
So is that 130 representative of 1/3? So eventually that number becomes more like 400,000?
There will be other things baked into there because that was the increase in the, that would be the 130.
The 130 is what, 1/3?
Because we have about 100 kids and it's a 0.4 FTE, and if our revenue limit per student is $10,000, it would be about 400,000, right, when it's fully implemented.
So it's a third, it's the first third
It's
of a
the-
3-year rolling average.
Right.
So in 3 years, it'll be-
Thank you.
My question is what's best for the students at
Well,
this
that's
point.
what I'm asking about the programs.
That's, you know, to run them from a half a day
Right.
program up to a full day.
You need this budget number to know
It's,
on the level of viability to begin with. And then you just, if you can afford it, then you decide is it,
lots of things to.
and if you can't afford it, then you have to decide how important would it be to move to this and how do you afford it, so.
Yeah, the first question, is it educationally sound, obviously, right, then we look at financials.
Okay.
Couple final items. I have in there to increase the fund balance by 16,000, so this year we have 125,000 set aside for our fund balance. That would increase it to 141,000, which would keep us right at that 17%. And then lastly, our open enrollment out, we have about 100 students at a $300 increase, the increase that we estimated for our open enrolled in students. And that's an extra 30,000, as well as the increased transfer to Fund 27. Any additional questions on those object series?
So nothing additional right now, we haven't thought about, I mean, we have $52 in it, our long-term maintenance fund. Is there any design or plan to increase that?
Not in the preliminary budget, but we did mention that, at the end of this budget year, if in years past the same is true, there might be some things we typically have spent on maintenance items or prepaying the retirement, or it could be, Fund 46. We did.
Those
Or
are all options.
pre-fund our fund balance so that we're
Right.
running right on 17%.
Yeah, that Fund 46 is a placeholder basically in my mind, but at a first blush, I'd rather increase the fund balance if we had
Right.
revenue, rather than put it in that.
Cause it locks up in there,
Much more flexible.
right?
Yeah, cause what it locks up in that fund
Fund
for 5 years.
46. I don't know if it continues to lock up every time you contribute to it, or that was the first funding of it.
Right, just from the opening of the account, you have 5 years. And I'm thinking we're
We're close.
probably 4 in.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So the graph on the front, you can see 2019, so that would be the 18-19 school year is the one that's highlighted in blue there. You can see that we are planning on adding 125,000 to our revenue, or our revenue limit, oh my gosh. Our fund balance in 2020, that's increasing to 141,000, which keeps us again at that 17% of expenditures. You can see that the mill rate for this year is $10 per thousand of equalized valuation. With the 500,000 additional on the debt levy, it would increase slightly to 1037, but it would keep it from dropping below that $10 mark. In 2021, I didn't put anything like for additional positions or anything like that, so that's why you're seeing more funds being directed into the fund balance. And so that's something that we would talk about as the time gets closer on how we wanna utilize those funds and any changes that might happen before there. And then of course going out assumes no additional revenue, increases in the student count or any of those things.
So on the blue column, the average impact on $100,000 home, that's not an increase, that's what the school tax would be $1,000.
Right. So in 2020, it would increase to that 1,037, so it'd be a $37 increase per 100,000 value.
So expenditures versus revenues, and then what does that mean for, additional staffing we've been working on for a couple months?
notice that we did not talk about additional staffing. Yeah. With the increases in positions that we already are committed to hiring, halfway through the year this year, increases in health insurance and those retirement benefits utilized a large portion, as well as the 2.44 CPI increase was a little more than we've seen in the past.
Any discussion or direction, there's some variables here.
Do you have a priority list if we found 100,000? Is that a
We do.
teacher, is it, what's the?
Yeah, we have a priority list, and, we're gonna go over that again tomorrow. Virtual school, is upside down with funding, kind of, 70-30 is the recommendation. Of the revenues, we'd like to get to 70% of the revenue spent on virtual school, and we're currently at 30%. So is our goal to get that reversed. Timeline is dependent on, obviously, enrollment and a number of things, but that's a priority there. And then there are, I think, 15 positions on our staffing addition wish list. We have them ranked in order of priority.
And buses and maintenance and those sorts of things, do we have anything that we should be ahead of rather than chasing in the next couple of years?
Brian just get a quote for a couple different options on buses from 89,000 to 118,000, 72 passenger to 84. So we have that number, we have that information, but it's not in this preliminary budget projection.
It does sound like a couple of the buses are getting to the point where we're probably not gonna be able to continue using them for a whole lot longer.
Cause we didn't do any new buses in the last 2 years, right?
Correct.
I did ask him to go back and see if he could just get a ballpark estimate on what a lease cost would be if we were needing to purchase a bus this year. We probably could find a place to fit that in the budget, usually right around 15,000 a year for a 5-year lease.
Anything else?
Yeah, but when
Did
we
we do
lease,
a
there's a
lease on
mileage limit?
those?
There's a mileage limit on when we lease?
It's a capital lease, so no,
Oh,
it's more like a financing.
Okay.
John?
I just was wondering if that came with the lease own option. I thought we bought some of our lease buses in the past.
Yeah, we always
That's
purchase
the
them.
capital lease.
Yeah.
We basically buy it for $1 at the end.
It works just like a loan.
So it's
except
5 or
for
6 years for $20,000 a year, and it's works out to the same as if you
Bought
bought it and financed it.
Yeah.
But you can lease it without a referendum.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget? I will see what happens in Madison and hopefully it's favorable.
Good job.
Keep up on that, so, thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's an amazing one. This is amazing.
Okay. Moving on to the next item. Other business, we have the 2019 spring election on April 2nd. Mr. Redmond and Mr. Lixet, who are running unopposed this year, so. Just remember, get out and vote. And, see what happens, there's, most of the contests I hear are uncontested across the state, except with the exception of the state Supreme Court justice, so that's the only contest I've heard about, so. Is there any other business come before the board? I know the WASB has sent out a couple of flyers on the new board member orientation, which is usually around the third Tuesday in April. And I believe they have their spring board member workshop, which will be held up at CC11 again. I think that's somewhere around the 8th of May. Forgot to bring a flyer in, but I think everybody should have gotten that flyer, so. I know there were what, 3 of us up there last year, so. Okay, anything else? And we have important upcoming dates. On March 26th, we have the CC11 Joint Board of Control PAC meeting at Turtle Lake. It starts at 6 p.m. Registration, 6:30 dinner, 7:30 as a speaker. I think Jeff and I are registered for that. If anybody else would have change of heart, then let Pam know. April 1st, we have a Wage and Benefit Committee work session, 5:30 here at the district office. We have the board learning and special meeting here at 6:30 on April 1st. On April 15th is our regularly scheduled SCC board meeting here at 7 o'clock.
And please add the communication meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
On April 15th.
Okay. Okay, are there any other dates that you have missed?
Well, the league confers that we just set, right?
Yep, so the April 8th and April 29th.
Okay.
For me, for.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 1985 1F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, discussed in public, would likely have substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations. This has to do with student assessment exemption requests. And then we have the second item, which is per Wisconsin State Statute 1985 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and this is with regards to discussion regarding coach evaluations. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion. David, second. John. Roll call vote. Kirk?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will take a couple of minutes and then we will return into closed session. So. Yeah.
Unless you're doing a student exemption, presenting for the testing exemption, admin can be generated. Coaches